Hi, I'm Dana Young. I'm the school nurse at Hopewell Valley High School, and I'm also the advisor of the Tatu leadership program. And first of all, I wanted to give you some information about Tatu. Tatu stands for Teens Against Tobacco Use. And it is a program that's sponsored by the American Lung Association, the American Cancer Society, and the American Heart Association. And this program uses who were trained on a Sunday. They spent a whole day being trained, and they learned how to go into classrooms to give information to younger students. I have a group of young people here who are Tatu leaders, and I'd like them each to introduce themselves and say what grade they're in, and also to give us a really brief idea of why they decided to become Tatu leaders. And why don't you start here?
Okay. I'm Joanna Hokinson. I'm in 11th grade, and the reason I chose to do Tatu was basically to spread the knowledge about smoking and the hazards of it to younger grades before they entered into high school. That's it.
My name is Nikki Paul, and I'm in 10th grade, and I chose to be in Tatu because I wanted to help spread my knowledge of what I've learned from Tatu to younger kids.
My name is Jessica Senor, and I'm in 10th grade. And one of the reasons that I joined Tatu was because I have two younger sisters, and I wanted to keep kids like them from smoking.
My name's Abby Metal. I'm also in 10th grade. I joined Tatu so that I could teach younger kids the dangers of smoking and to help prevent them from smoking like a lot of people I know.
My name's Stacey Hageman, and I'm in 11th grade. And the reason I joined Tatu is because there's a lot of people in the high school that are smoking that started really young, and I thought the more we could do to prevent them from starting, the better it would be.
And the reason why we chose to go into fourth grades was because statistics do show that little kids start to make decisions about what they're going to be doing, choosing to smoke or not to smoke, when they're around grade 4. That doesn't mean that they start smoking in grade 4, but they're starting to get some ideas about whether or not they think smoking's a good idea or a bad idea. And we know that students are taught from the time they're in kindergarten about the hazards of smoking, but somehow or other it doesn't seem to work because yearly we find out that more and more and more young people are smoking, and then they're becoming addicted, and then they're unable to stop, and they will suffer probably many of the consequences of smoking, which include heart disease, lung involvement, and many other things. And so we decided we would target the fourth graders this year. Joanna, you've been part of the program, and you've been going into the fourth grades. Can you give us some idea of some of the activities that you do with the fourth graders?
Okay. We go in and we basically introduce ourselves and tell the kids why we're there. Sometimes we put up statistics on the board so that they can visually see and read for themselves just what happens to kids when they smoke. We play a game to get to know them as well, a game, like an icebreaker type of thing, and then we give them pamphlets and stuff about smoking and the hazards of it, and we just basically talk to That's what my group does.
Yeah. How about you, Nikki?
Well, we go in there and we introduce ourselves. We have name tags. We give the top, like the 10 reasons, like the lies about tobacco, and then we start off with an icebreaker to get to know them and to get them more familiar with us. And we'll do a skit where we take like 2 kids from the audience and we put them in a situation. Sometimes they give it to us, and sometimes we say what the situation is. And we just say, what would you do in the situation? And we stop them before they respond, and then we get ideas for their responses.
Okay. How about you, Jessica? Do you do anything differently, or are
Well,
you in the group with
I'm in the
Nikki?
same group as Nikki, but one thing that I think is pretty effective is we have time at the end where they can ask questions or just comment on like to tell their story or ask their question. So that seems to work.
How about you, Abby?
Yeah, I'm also in the same group, and another part of our presentation is when we do this smoking demonstration. The cigarette smoke, and we explain that that symbolizes the lung and the smoke that builds up inside, and they really get a feel for what the smoking does to you.
Yeah. One of the things that I've noticed, because I also go in and I go from classroom to classroom when the students are in there, and I get this impression that the fourth graders are really paying a
Adults that go into the classroom and they stand up and they read off a whole bunch of facts and why you shouldn't smoke and how many people smoke, they kind of they get sick of hearing it after a while. So I think the fact that they can relate more to us because we're closer in age helps them, and they feel like it's somebody they can look up to and be like, not like the kids they see smoking all the time.
That's very true, and that's why I think the whole idea of peer teaching is very important in all different areas, but in this area especially, because as the school nurse at the high school, I am concerned about the numbers of students smoking, and I think I want the message to go out to younger students before they make the decision that it's okay not to smoke. A lot of little kids think that everybody who's over the age of 14 smokes, and that's really not true. These students don't smoke, and we have a lot of students at the high school who don't smoke, but somehow or other it's easy to see only the people who are out there puffing on the cigarettes all the time. You said something about advertising. Would anybody want to? I've got some of the examples of some of the advertisements that Joanna.
Okay. We take a situation, usually the advertisements are of people playing sports or smiling real big, or having a lot of fun, as if smoking isn't really hurting them or their bodies. And we just try to make the kids see that that's false advertisement because of what really happens with the lungs and all that. I mean, people that smoke eventually, their teeth get yellow and stuff like that. So it's obvious that their teeth would not be white all the time, and they can't play sports as much because they can't breathe as long and stuff like that. So we just try to show them the false advertisement and the hidden messages type of deal in the advertisements.
Which is something that's really important to let kids know. I see that Nikki is holding an ad which kind of makes it look very glamorous. I mean, here's this, lovely young woman who's all dressed up, looking very sophisticated, and she's holding a cigarette. And obviously that's basically the message they're trying to get across. Whereas I think one thing we've learned is that you never see the models in these particular advertisements actually smoking. They're just holding the cigarettes. Which ad do you have there?
I have one for Capri Super Slims, and there's like a beautiful skinny woman, the glamorous, she's like independent and everything, and we don't want, like, especially like the little girls and everything, that they want to grow up and be like, but we try to point out that she may not actually smoke, and they're just trying to get the point across, and they're advertising falsely that those kind of things will come along with smoking. So.
One thing that I've noticed on these ads that we have and when I've been going through magazines, and that's that it seems, and I think this is true, that most or a lot of cigarette advertising does target girls and young women, and that's borne out by statistics that show that there are probably more teenage girls who are starting to smoke than teenage guys. So obviously trying to get a handle on advertising is important. What do you think, Abby?
I think it is, because I have an example of a Camel ad, and that's really surprising. In our group, when we would hold up the Camel ads, every single person in the class would just be like, "Oh yeah, Camel." Every single person would recognize it. We talk about the statistic that more eight-year-olds recognize Joe Camel more than Mickey Mouse, and that seems to surprise the kids, yet they kind of understand it because they all recognize it. Most of the kids understand the Surgeon General's warning. They notice it, they talk about it, they kind of ask why it's there, and we talk about the need for it, and we usually read off the different Surgeon General warnings and talk about the hazards.
Mm-hmm. Did you, Stacy, do you know anything else that you wanted to say about advertising? Do you have an interesting one there?
I have the basic ad. It says it's the basic three-piece suit, and it's a pair of jeans, a pair of sneakers, and a shirt with a pack of cigarettes in the pocket. And it's one, it doesn't directly target anybody. I guess it just tries to make it look like you can be relaxed or whatever if you're smoking. One of the things that, well, with the Surgeon General's warning that we do in our group is after we read them all off, we have the kids say what good Surgeon General warning would be that gave them good information, and they usually shout out things like it'll kill you or don't do it, it's stupid. But they realize that, well, the Surgeon General's warning are on there to advise people not to smoke. They don't really tell you as much as they should.
That's true. And I think that's one thing you want to get across to the younger students. One thing that we have talked about, and that is that maybe next year, because we want our program to go on from year to year, that we've talked about possibly going into 6th grades, where it seems like a lot of the students actually do start smoking, or when they have a chance to see high school students when they're waiting for the bus, or when they're shopping, or doing many different things. So it seems to me that maybe next year when we start thinking about and planning our time, we might want to think about going into 6th grades also, and just to give them some of the information now that we've firmed it up. One thing about Tatu is it's supposed to be a community advocacy group, and these teenagers were nominated for the National Teen Advocate Award. Now, they didn't win it because it was national, but they have a certificate of commendation, which I just received last week, and we're going to make copies of it for everybody to have, because we'd like to also branch out and to get out into the community maybe even a little bit more. And on May the 2nd, the high school is going to be having a health fair, and there's going to be a lot of health programs going on there, but the American Cancer Society has asked the Tatu students to man the table there to pass out information about cancer, not just about smoking and cancer, but about cancer itself. And so the Tatu group will be taking part in that, which is, really one of the things that we expected them to do once we got started. They're also going to be involved in the Relay for Life, which is an American Cancer Society program, and that's going to be on June the 5th. And so we certainly think that our group, starting just as a small group going into the elementary schools, is probably going to have pretty good impact on the community just by their presence and by the activities that they're going to get involved in. Joanna and Stacy were involved in something that I'd like to see us do a little bit more next year. We went down, we were invited to a Weed and Seed program down in Trenton at one of the elementary schools, and I'm not sure which one of you would like to just describe a little bit about what we did. We can only take three students, so it was Stacy and Joanna and John Bloomer, who's not here today.
Okay, I guess I'll start. We went down and it was a small group of kids, and we were just trying to talk to them basically about smoking. And it was an after-school program, and it was kids that were there just to be there. I mean, they didn't really have to, so we had a pretty good turnout. We did the same sort of things, games and passing out pamphlets and stickers and stuff like that, and they seemed to get to be pretty interested in it, and a lot of them had really good questions.
Stacy?
The fact that it was an after-school program, a lot more of the kids, it was nice for them. They'd already been in school, they were already out of school, and it was like an extra presentation for somebody else to be there that they didn't know. I think they got maybe more out of it than the kids did at our elementary schools, because there were fewer of them and there were fewer of us, and they could relate better. Maybe not better, but there were only 3 of us, and they could see us and see, well, Mrs. Young was there, and they could ask us more personalized questions because there weren't as many people to worry about. Did the same sort of activities that we do with the kids in the elementary schools, and it was effective.
Yeah, and we would also like to, we've had some invitations, but it's hard to find the time for everybody to go every place, to go to Girl Scout troops and to go to other organizations. So we certainly think that it's been worthwhile. It seems that the program has been effective. After we go into an elementary school, we do leave an evaluation form, and the teacher fills out the evaluation form, and all the evaluations have been excellent. And that's really good, because when you think you've got 25 fourth graders rapt, paying attention and responding better than they do when they're sitting there for math or for science or even for some of their other activities, I think that really shows that the students who are involved in Tatu are really doing a good job. We have 25 students, and not everybody could be here today, but they are 10th and 11th grade students, and can be kind of an interesting thing. I know I've had people come to me and say they're interested, and I'm sure the people, your friends maybe, who would initially thought it sounded kind of dumb, maybe found out that besides getting out of school to go to the elementary schools, you're also learning something. You're learning leadership skills, and I think that's something that's really important. Do you all feel like that you have learned things that, other than about smoking, but other things? Jessica, is there anything in particular?
Well, just in general, I really wasn't aware of how much they were affected. They seem so much younger, and things like that, that they didn't really know about. But we talked to them about peer pressure and all that kind of thing, and most of the kids had all had experiences with that kind of thing, and I found that really surprising.
Yeah. How about you, Abby?
Yeah, I think it was really beneficial also just to work with the kids and to see how they felt about it and their views on the high school kids and what they believed they did. And we kind of tried to break that and tell them, our opinions, what the high school was like compared to what they thought it was like.
Mm-hmm. That's good. How about you, Nick?
They all showed a willingness to have us there and be there, and they all had stories to tell us, and they were ready to, they all had numbers of stories, and they had more than one, and they were all ready to tell them, and they just kept talking on and on about it, so they seemed to want us there and cooperated very well.
Yeah, I know the one teacher actually had her class send cards back, and it was kind of interesting, the things that the little kids put on the cards, because a couple of them said, I went home and I talked to my dad who smokes about this, and he promised that he was going to try to stop smoking. I think it's important that this is kind of low-key. We certainly don't want little kids to start thinking that what their parents are doing is bad and evil. It's just that possibly when their parents started to smoke, they didn't maybe know how bad it actually was. But when their children come home and have facts, which they seem to pick up right away, all the facts about it, and if they can go home and talk intelligently to their parents or their brothers or their sisters, aunts and uncles, it seems like maybe it would make an impact. And so they're just going along, and they're not just getting this information for them to make decisions, but they're also becoming little advocates themselves, which I think is really important. I think that's what it's all about. Do any of you work with little kids in other ways, like babysitting or programs? So you know that kids are really quick to pick things up, and once you get that little storehouse in there, it helps for them. They'll go out and they'll spread it around too. So I really and truly believe that this is a program that I would like to see continue, and most of the kids who are involved in it want to continue in it too. Sometimes when seniors when students get to be seniors, they're very caught up in the process of applying to colleges and other things, and that's why we specifically targeted sophomores and juniors this year. But I'm sure that maybe some of our students who are going to be seniors next year will help us carry on and maybe help us do some training, because the training takes a while just for you to get comfortable. Do you all have anything that you want to add before we close? Anybody? No?
Not really.
Nothing. Okay. Well, I know from talking to all the students that most of them feel that this has been, a very good program. I think they've learned a lot themselves. I think it's given them experience working with little kids, speaking in front of groups, learning to organize a lesson plan, knowing how to keep a group under control. And so I think that this is something that I personally would like to continue. I know that the high school is committed to this program, and I know that the American Cancer Society has used us as a model, and that we're going to continue to grow, and I think that we're going to be doing a lot more next year. And I just personally want to thank all of the students who took the time to be a part of this, because they had to do a lot of it on their own. And we have some students here in the audience, and they were not able to come up and speak, but I just wanted to thank Cal Newport and Keely Burns and Christy Phillips from being here and from sitting here and watching us and giving us support for the tattoo program. And if anyone ever has any questions, they can always call me at the high school. I'm Dana Young, and I'm the school nurse. And thank you very much for giving us the time to talk to you about our tattoo program.
Smoking is the #1 preventable cause of death in the nation.
Yeah, you don't have to smoke. There's no way around it. You may accidentally get in a car accident and die, but that's not preventable. You guys don't have to smoke, and that's definitely preventable.
There's probably nobody here that would go into a store and pay money so they could be in a car crash and have a good chance of being killed. But people will go and they'll pay money to have cigarettes, which they're the same sort of thing.
And also, do you see how the government is now going to put a higher tax on cigarettes? That's kind of to discourage people from buying them, because maybe the more expensive they are, maybe that will decrease how many people buy them, because it might not be such an affordable habit.
They're so expensive already. For the people who smoke, if they saved all the money that they buy on cigarettes, they could buy something really great probably, because they just waste so much money on a pack of cigarettes.
Like $2 a day, that's like $14 in a week. That's,
what can you guys buy?
I could go out and buy a shirt that I could wear to school, and instead of show that off, instead of showing that I'm like cool for smoking, which is completely not true, because you look like a fool.
I learned that there's over 4,000 chemicals in a cigarette, and 43 of them are known to cause cancer.
I learned that there are animal droppings on the leaves that they use. When you smoke, your breath smells bad, and your hair, and your clothing, and your teeth.
It's hard to stop once you started.
I'm sorry.
It says, according to the CDC survey, 30.5% of youth currently smoke.
So you take dirty brown leaves with bugs, pesticides, mouse droppings, and chemicals, and you wrap them in more chemicals and fiberglass. Then you burn it and breathe it into your lungs?
Yeah. You want one?
No thanks.